The Horde. We've talked about them a little bit already. I've had my own video about the Horde and where the fuck are they. But it's time to watch a deep dive into how Blizzard has erased the Horde. This is not a recent thing. This is not a midnight thing. It's been a slow withering away of the Horde in general, whether it's killing off great Horde leaders or dismantling the Horde into what is now the Council of shit, basically a bunch of fucking people that have no relation to each other, don't talk to each other, it seems like, and don't react to anything because the Void is invading, and we have no standing Horde armies right now sitting in Silvermoon. We have the Horde players, we have the Silvermoon citizens, obviously the Blood Elves, but where the fuck is the massive Orc army right now? Where are the Tauren? What's going on? Let's get into this one here, a little bit of history on how Blizzard has erased the Horde from Bellular. Let's check this one out.
You may have heard of What Sword, but that is old news, because today we talk about What Horde. By which I mean this Horde. Gromhellscream charging Manroth, Putris at the Wrathgate, Vol'jin's revolution against Garrosh, the organization forged in the blood of the innocent, redeemed by Thrall, and fighting world-ending threats ever since. Now, I'm not trying to drag Blizzard through the mud here, but there's a world where the Horde actually played a role in Midnight. Yet Blizzard chose a different path. They've only got so much space to tell a story.
I think it would have been really cool if there was a silhouette of like a Tauren paladin here walking up too. I'm not a Horde guy, right? I've played Alliance my whole life. But it would have been cool for lore's sake, like a Sunwalker fucking Tauren walking up these steps, big dick armor and everything. Like, I would have appreciated that. But it basically just looks like a bunch of humans and elves in this army, which is why everybody thought it was the Arathi. Right, the Arathi army, the same ones that showed up in Hallowfall, like from the other side of the world. That's what we all thought when we saw these guys. Because there's literally no Horde paladin representation, unless you're talking about the Blood Elves, which we know are Horde, but this is their city. They had to be there.
Right? It's an MMO. But when Silvermoon was attacked, and its first line of defense, the Light's Vanguard, were sucked into the Darkwell, the natural choice would have been to call the Horde. Instead, we reach out to the elves, beginning with the Kaldorei. To some it felt a bit weird, and yes, wells going wrong is a very elvish problem.
True.
But many did ask, what about the Horde? They've arrived to help with other world-ending threats. And where the hell even is the Horde? Why haven't they arrived? And the answer from Blizzard may as well be, what Horde? So, let's see what's went so weird, and perhaps so wrong, in faction politics, why things have went down this way, and what it tells us about the future of the Warcraft setting. And you know what's even more satisfying during a new expansion launch? DoorDashing a whole bunch of food, or Deliveroo here in the UK. But you know what's less satisfying?
Deliveroo.
The people who know your address getting data breached. And in October 2025, an employee of DoorDash fell for a scam and attackers walked off with names, addresses, and phone numbers.
Oh no.
It was the third breach in 6 years, and that's why I use today's sponsor, Incogni, because it helps me fight back. You see, whenever data leaks, it gets everywhere. Brokers harvest it, they sell it on. If you ever wondered how a spam caller got your number, it's that kind of thing. And Incogni solves the problem by automating the legal work you'd otherwise have to do manually. And you can join at incogni.com/bellularwarcraft for 60% off the annual plan. And it's
not
simple,
bad,
you
not a
enter
bad
your
deal.
info, and that's basically that. Now, you see, you've got a legal right to get your data taken down.
I'm not going to skip it. I want to get Incogni. What's wrong with you?
Incogni scans the broker, sends takedown requests, and adds you to suppression lists automatically. And they've also added custom removals where if you spot your info anywhere online, you can just paste them the link and their team will look into the problem for you and see if they can handle it. And here's my own personal dashboard. I've got 259 takedowns sent, 253 completed, 6 in progress, and I'm on 22 suppression lists. And they're monitoring 23 of the brokers to ensure they're being compliant.
Wow.
It's great peace of mind. And 60% off at incogni.com/bellularwarcraft.
Not a bad deal.
We returned from the Voidspire in defeat. And we didn't just lose the battle, we also lost the Vanguard of the Light.
Right.
And by then, after everything was stripped from Silvermoon to fight Xal'atath, Lor'themar was effectively left with nothing. But Arator had a plan, and that plan comes from a quest called the Kaldorei, which should give you a hint at where all of this is going. Arator tells us we need to retake the Darkwell. He says we need an army. Of course, you think about an army, you think about the Horde. It's got a big army. He says that more than an army, we actually need many armies. Well, the Horde is made up of multiple factions. They're in a big defensive alliance, and one of their home cities has just been attacked. You'd think that they may be the armies. But they're not. And then
Yeah.
he goes a little bit off the rails. He says we should go to Belemeth and ask the Kaldori, the Night Elves, for help. So not the Horde, but a faction that has been, well, brutally antagonistic to the Horde and to Blood Elves for about as long as we've been playing the game. And
Right, and are they even as strong as they were previous? I mean, they had their population decimated with the burning of Teldrassil. So, I mean, why did he decide to go for the Night Elves? I have no idea. I think he's got a Night Elf fetish. I don't blame him. But still, why the Night Elves? Yeah, why not the Orcs? Why didn't he go ask the Orcs for help? Why didn't he go ask the Tauren for help? If you think about a lot of the Horde armies, they are weakened. They're in a weakened state. I mean, who's the leader? We lost Vol'jin for the Trolls. What the fuck's going on with the Goblins? We had the whole Undermine shit, but I mean, are they just hanging out in Undermine now? I don't even know if they're back in Orgrimmar. And then you have the other Horde, I guess he should have asked for the Vulpira's help. That's what he should have done. They would have helped for sure, because that's a very valuable race to add to this game, other than for the specific fact that it's a sexual fetish. They would have been great, right? Imagine he said that. We need the help of the Vulpira. Why? Because they have butt plugs.
If you've only been playing the game in the last 10 years, you may not actually know
I'll leave it at
loads of that. So, the Night Elves infiltrated Eversong with spies. This is way, way, way back in the day. They obviously condemned their use of the well. The Night Elves also shunned the Nightborn, forcing them into the Horde. That's why they're there. Now, for their part, the Blood Elves fueled Garrosh's war with weapons of mass destruction, and then took part, at least partially, in the burning of Teldrassil. A small little massacre to sweep under the rug. I'm sure longtime Horde players just sat back and asked themselves, what the hell is going on? I don't think Alliance mains can really deal with this either. Why the hell should a Night Elf go and help the Blood Elves, given all of their history? But that's the sort of thing we've been seeing. It's a story that's been building since the War Within's epilogue, and we deep dived that in this video. But no matter how well grounded all this is in Midnight, it still feels strange, because Midnight happens in Azeroth. Azeroth has history that we remember, because we've been playing games set in it for, some cases, 30 plus years. But before we get into why this is strange, let's take a shot at a good faith interpretation. Let's steelman things, and see what Blizzard are trying to build, before we perhaps tear it down.
So it says in chat the undead could help. I mean, they could, but they're trying to figure out their fucking capital city situation too. I mean, what are they gonna do? I don't know. You have undead light users. By the way, we should have undead paladins. I mean, that should be a thing too. But I mean, we got Alonzus Fowl out there doing his thing. He's cool. Other than that, yeah, the undead are kind of absent too. Haven't seen a lot of undead other than NPC, other than player undead. That's it. It's like the rest of the Horde.
During the World Soul Saga's reveal, we were promised a reunification of the Elven tribes. That sounded cool, and in subsequent interviews, Maria Hamilton gave us details about how that would work. She explained there were centuries of trauma between the elves, so it wouldn't be simple bringing them together. Yet all it took, it seems, was about 15 minutes, and Arator's winning smile, plus another world-ending threat.
There was a Tauren and a troll paladin at the Sunwell, were there? I mean, yeah, I guess you got just... you got light army of the light representation, but that's across the board. It's just any light users are there. That's it. But like Anduin is there. We got Torellian there. Who are the other alliance leaders? We have, I think they're all there. We even saw Jaina was there. She was kind of knocked out towards the end. Kalia Menethil is there. But like these are all like alliance related people. Yeah, Kalia is for the undead, but she's still very much alliance affiliated. So it's just weird. Like, where the hell are all the Horde leaders? What, Prophet Velen is there? Yep, that's true, too.
She quipped that most players don't even know the lore, and I think she would be right in that. So this would have been another great opportunity to teach us, to explore all of the bad blood between the various elven tribes. So clearly, at one stage, Blizzard put a lot of thought into that. Let's meet them halfway. So, Silvermoon needs an army. The first step is Belemeth. Then, perhaps, Undercity. And partial logic aside, Belemeth is on the Dragon Isle, so it's fairly close to where the Blood Elves live. Then there's Suramar, a powerful city-state with very...
I mean, it's obvious why the Suramar elves came to help. She's fucking Lorthamar, of course. Anybody who's going to Pound Town that hard is going to freaking unite their armies, right? Just like he united his cock into her, so it makes sense. We all knew that would happen.
Solid portal logic, and besides some saboteurs, was always going to come to Silvermoon's aid. Then
Come
the
indeed.
Silver Covenant, a somewhat nomadic army that only recently resettled in the borders of Eversong. There was no doubt they would eventually step up to defend the Sunwell. And then you have the small but elite forces of the Void Elves, who, besides the whole being banished from Silvermoon because of the Void thing, don't have much reason, or as much of a reason, to hate the Blood Elves.
You know, the Void Elves have grown on me, this expansion. I always thought they were like, oh, what a sad excuse for what the High Elves should have been on the Alliance as a playable race. But I've actually enjoyed all the contributions they've made in this expansion. I think it's been pretty good.
All that makes sense, and it gives Arator the army that he needs. Now think about the Horde. Exhausted from decades of war, scattered under a council that seemingly can't take any...
Where the fuck is Thrall? This guy, I mean, Anduin showed up. Where's Thrall? He's still playing. He's making sandcastles in Silithus or something. Seriously. This guy has, like, become the absentee of every expansion. What'd he do in freaking Shadowlands? He was sitting in Oribos. What else? Last expansion, he was just dicking around in the what was our capital, Dornegal, the entire time. Where has this guy been? He's just absent everything, and now he's doing it again. Just dipping out, sitting in Silithus.
Action. As recently as the Heartlands Arathi crisis, Thrall was able to just take command of the Kor'kron and send them to Khazalgar. We saw it took them weeks to arrive in ships, but that, again, was an intentional storytelling decision, and it gave us time to delve into Khazalgar with a sense of impending Nerubian doom. That all makes sense, right? Put portals to one side, say it's actually difficult to teleport a whole army in, you'd maybe need the power of something like the Sunwell to do that, and I guess it all does make sense. But it doesn't feel very good. And I think we're seeing that in player sentiment. Those storytelling constraints were put in place because it made sense, so let me take a stab at what we, the players, the Alliance, but mainly the Horde, seem to feel about all this.
Feels bad, man.
Look at this guy. This is how we feel. It's old man Mavrin. He was once Executor Mavrin of the Forsaken Military, a grim sentinel sent by Sylvanas to protect Tranquillion and the Ghostlands. He put his blood, sweat, embalming fluid, and whatever other fluids the Forsaken have into saving Silvermoon. Then, when the Scourge was gone, he was forced into retirement. But he didn't return to the Undercity. He stayed in Tranquillion. He lives there, and you can meet him today. The Forsaken did not marshal their armies here, and it's an omission so great, given the linkage between those two peoples, that I initially felt like we were being gaslit. You see, pre-launch, Blizzard treated us to this amazing, outstanding animation of Liadrin going to Tirisfal and asking...
I thought the undead were going to be much more relevant when I saw this. I did, and it just didn't happen.
...for aid. And sure, the Undercity ain't what it used to be, but Liadrin literally asked the Forsaken for help before Xalatath attacked. Yet there was not a whisper of the Death Guard mustering, the apothecaries experimenting, or the stalkers infiltrating. They just didn't show up.
I really thought the undead were going to be so relevant that we were going to get undead paladins. I did. I thought that was coming for sure, but I don't know now.
That's just the Forsaken. Take another character, Gazlo, still solidifying his position as Trade Prince. Maybe say he's too busy chasing Orwena through Harrenzar. You've got the Tauren. They had some central figures randomly teleported to the Sunwell, like Tahu Sagewind. You had the Sunwalkers appearing there. So the Tauren absolutely knew something was going on, yet there was no sign of the Tauren even wondering what happened to those people. Other characters, G, Gera, Talanji, they are stuck in Horde Council stasis, where it seems, well, actually it's quite literally stasis. I don't even have a better word, they're just doing nothing. And with all that said, the only Horde faction we've not discussed is the Blood Elves. But that one's fairly easy. They've been a backbone of the Horde since the Burning Crusade, literal titans of the modern Horde's war machine. On every front line, they have been pushing the Horde's interest. They're owed. They've contributed to that alliance. That's why it's strange for them to not reach out, and strange for the Horde to sit back and do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, the Blood Elves have carried the Horde since BC. I mean, even I think, like, in terms of, like, race, like, played, like, races and how much they're made in the game, I think Blood Elves carry the day. It's like the Blood Elves, then a bunch of Alliance races, and then the Horde shows up. And it's like the only race people are playing on the Horde these days, it looks like. And so, what the hell, in terms of, like, what they've contributed to the Horde, because they could have been Alliance, they used to be. I mean, what has the Horde returned for them? Nothing. This was their chance. Nothing. It's crazy.
Now, those are all the logical reasons we feel the Horde should be in Midnight, but they're not. Not because they're too busy, or because it would be too complicated to bring them to Silvermoon. It's actually for a very simple reason, in our estimation, and it's that Blizzard chose not to use the Horde in this story. They made a choice. They decided the Horde was not a worthwhile storytelling unit, and so they went in a different direction with the reunification of the Elven tribes. Something that, within the context of 12.0, might have taken about 20 minutes of campaign. And the thing is, all that should have been obvious by now. It's clear Blizzard does not know what to do with the factions, what to do with the legacy of the world that
man, that was peak Horde right there. This is fucking Horde. Jesus, what a great cinematic that was. Say what you want about WoD, this was a beastly cinematic.
Have built, and what to do with that particular brand of Horde storytelling. That's a brand of Horde storytelling that brought, you could maybe say, about half the player base to World of Warcraft. Those are the kind of stories with hard edges, with death, with loss, and with...
To be fair, okay, if we're going to pause here, we might get more Horde shit when the Amani trolls get their patch, which is the next big patch, like 12.2, or it would be 12.1. 12.1 is going to be the Amani troll patch. We know that. It's hinted at. It's all over the fucking place. The shit's written on the wall. So maybe we get some more Dark Spear troll, Amani troll, and it pulls more into the Horde and all that. Maybe we get some of that in that patch. So I guess we should wait, kind of hold our opinion in terms of what's Blizzard doing with the Horde. Maybe they're going to become super relevant in this next patch. Yeah, but right now, I did think we were going to get way more troll lore, way more, because of the Loa shit too going on. Like, I thought we were going to get a lot more Darkspear troll lore. We haven't.
Redemption. So I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to show you the set of events that broke the Horde. Not in-game, but as a thing Blizzard could use to tell stories. And then I'm going to explain what they're doing instead. Because if you think neither the Horde nor the Alliance factions dominate the A-plot, you're wrong.
BFA ruined everything.
It's ironic that Sylvanas returned to save the day in a story that put the final nail in the Horde's coffin, and that's because it was Sylvanas who murdered it in the first place.
True.
You could say it happened long before, that Warcraft has always been putting faction politics aside for the greater good when it really counts. It could have started at Molten Core, or after the disaster of Wrathgate. The factions failed. The Argents saved the day. You could even say it's when the Alliance and Horde rebels united to fight Garrosh, or the pinnacle of faction-agnostic storytelling during the third and final Legion invasion. But even then, the Forsaken were blowing Alliance airships out of the sky, setting up, of course, the true villain of our story, the Fourth War. At the time, it made its own kind of sense. Sylvanas was a brutal war chief, worse than Garrosh in many ways, but many thought she had her people's interest at heart.
Yeah.
She would just go to absurdly extreme lengths. And with Azerite, we had a literal arms race, one that the Horde got the initial leg up on. So we launched into a war that we quickly discovered was pretty much the most brutal yet. A true world war on Azeroth. Stormwind lost.
Yeah, this was all inspirational and everything, and then Shadowlands completely ruined it when we realized, like, all these Horde people that died, this orc right here, sacrificed for nothing, just thrown to the maw. Like, that was the only reason she was doing all this, was to fuck everybody up and send a bunch of souls to the maw.
Brutal yet. A true world war on Azeroth.
It felt like they were fighting for nothing.
Soldiers, it needed to conscript farmers from Westfall. The Horde, their armies and fleets, were thrown into one engagement after another, the kill count constantly rising. And before the whole thing kicked off in earnest, Teldrassil and many of those within were literally torched. But it made sense, right? It's the Alliance and the Horde. They don't trust each other. Sometimes they hate each other. And this is the natural conclusion of 2 decades of tension. But then, as one expansion turned to the next, it no longer made sense. In the Shadowlands, we discovered the kill count was so high because Sylvanas was funneling anima into the afterlife.
Right.
Also, she could juice up the Jailer's plans to rewrite reality. Or something, because, as we all know so well, a cosmos divided cannot withstand what is to come. But what that story did is it made the sacrifice of the factions feel totally
Still don't know what he was
pointless.
talking about.
We weren't fighting because of decades of tensions, not because of the cycles of hatred. It was actually all because Sylvanas needed souls, and she was basically lying to everyone. The Fourth War was a failure, both in-game and out of game. People no longer wanted Alliance versus Horde, because the time we really got it committed to, it was awful. And that realization, I believe, gave Blizzard the fear. Clearly, faction tension was too hard to land for the modern...
Well, I mean, they went all in, but then they didn't, because it really became an old god expansion. That's what BFA was. But I remember, like, from the Alliance perspective, I thought it was really cool. Probably one of the coolest, like, lead-ins to a raid was when, if you remember, as an Alliance player, you swim around the outskirts of Dazar Lore and you plant bombs on all the ships in the harbor. And the Horde, I remember telling my brother this because he played Horde at the time. And he was like, "What do you mean you put bombs on our ships?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, we put bombs on all your ships in this fucking quest line." And he goes, "What? Why didn't they explode?" I was telling at the time I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And then all of a sudden you get the pre-cinematic for a Battle for Dazar Lore and we blow up the ships. And I was like, "Oh man, I told you about this. You didn't go fucking tell any of the Horde leadership that we did this? What a piece of shit Horde you are." So I thought it was a really cool thing. The whole storyline leading into that war and how it was like Battle for Dazar Lore had two versions of it, one for the Horde, one for the Alliance, and how you kind of go back and forth and you eventually cross paths. I thought it was a really cool setup for a raid. But then after that was kind of peak faction war. After that, it just became an old god expansion, and they kind of abandoned the faction war.
Blizzard writing team. Mattson was out, and the new guy, Denoozer, wanted to bring the franchise perhaps in a different direction.
Denoozer.
But then things began happening in Blizzard HQ. Rumors of impropriety, of immoral behavior from staff going through the past, and when it exploded into the public, with the now famous lawsuit, Blizzard hard pivoted away from stories that could make people feel uncomfortable. And that pretty much meant the Horde was out. You can't have the honor without the strength. Blizzard was not strong enough. The most damning piece of evidence is, obviously, Eitrig. We've done a whole video on that, but in short, he no longer says strength and honor. He says strength, peace, and honor. Like,
he's a soy boy now.
But in terms of how we've experienced your story in-game, there's no reason for you to suddenly say that. I understand the lore, I understand the backing, but what matters is the story that Blizzard tells. And they did not...
Bobby definitely did shit wrong. Yeah, Bobby did. Garrosh did nothing wrong is a more true statement, for sure. And that guy basically committed a genocide. But Bobby, yeah, he got a boat, at least. And he got away basically without any issues. Somebody the other day in chat said Blizzard's been going downhill ever since they stopped drinking breast milk. That made me chuckle. Yeah, Blizzard went through some really weird shit.
Tell the story of him getting to that place. And that feels like the soul of the Orcish people finally being gutted and sacrificed on the altar of Blizzard's modern, young adult fantasy ambitions. It's what they seem to be. And what those are the final dying grasps of the Horde that we grew up with. No longer relevant, no longer useful, no longer having a place in the world. And on that depressing note, I'll now tell you what Blizzard are doing instead. This is the splash art from Warcraft 3. It's one of the most iconic pieces of art from this franchise.
Badass.
And it was pure faction antagonism. And this is Hope Rises, key art for Midnight. Look how similar they are. Two factions in a desperate struggle. And that's what I'm about to explain. That the Alliance and the Horde may be dying on the vine, but factions aren't. Factions, at their core, are kind of platforms to be greater than the sum of our parts. And that's essential in a world like Azeroth. A single orc can't face down Argus, the Lich King, or Ragnaros, but a coalition of the Horde's best and brightest did. That goes for the Alliance as well. But the point is the factions are still important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to beat the threats that are coming our way. It's just that the factions in question have changed, and that's the sad.
What the hell? Why is the background music getting so loud? Jesus.
Midnight alone has two post-Battle for Azeroth factions.
The
first is the Vanguard of the Light, a kind of rerun of the Argent Crusade in Northrend, but with a spicier, amped-up take on the Light. They were sucked into the Darkwell, and so far have been a failure. Then, instead of reaching out to the Horde, we hammered together another de facto faction. The Elves, the reunited tribes.
Bad
No way.
editing.
Very
It's like
cool
the source
stuff.
of the video.
I do
Jeez.
actually mean that. We've been asking for some of that for years, and it opens up loads of storytelling opportunities. Think of a Lordaeron-focused faction of humans and Forsaken.
I've said it before. I wish they would bring back Lordaeron. It needs to come back. It's such an easy city for them to do what they did with Silvermoon. It's easier than Silvermoon because you already have the cross-faction area. It's above ground. It's Lordaeron. You could easily rebuild Lordaeron, make it a cross-faction hub for whatever expansion you want to do. And then you got the Undercity, which could just remain for the Horde. Perfect. Rebuild the Undercity in a more glorious form. Bam. This city's ripe for being rebuilt, and man, it would be glorious if they did. I just need it to happen. And I'll keep saying it. I say it probably 3 times a week in my fucking videos. Bring back Lordaeron, please. Do it, Blizz.
Pan-troll faction securing their
Oh, fuck
ancestral
this loud
lands.
music,
These
Jesus.
children of the Titans, humans, dwarves, gnomes, coming together to explore Northrend. That's the type of post-faction future that we are marching into. And in some ways, it looks bright, and it can allow us to explore cool themes, cool lore. But the problem is, when you totally ignore one of our fundamental driving forces for playing the game, the Alliance and the Horde, when you cut out 20 years of player experience, people are going to feel bad. And it's totally avoidable. If Blizzard put just a little more effort into explaining why the factions aren't involved in this post-faction storyline, perhaps we'd all just nod and go to save the Sunwell alongside the elves. But no, instead Blizzard chose not to use the Horde, not to really mention them, forcing us to ask, with every lore reveal, and with every raid, with every new Xalatath-caused crisis, where are the Horde? So, what Horde? How does it exist? And the thing is, the core of this world's storytelling, one of the things that has defined it, has been these two grand coalitions of different peoples. And it's the interaction of...
You know, I have a perfect definition for what the Horde are now. I can easily basically summarize this entire video and define the Horde in a couple of words. What are the Horde? They're not the Alliance. That's it. That's what they become. They're essentially everybody who's not the Alliance is the Horde. And that's all. They're irrelevant. They're not really doing much. The Alliance is out there fucking around with the Blood Elves, trying to protect the city, and then there's everybody else who's not the Alliance just doing shit in the world. God knows what the fuck's happening. Yeah, wow, what a breakthrough, Sam. I know, yeah, exactly. I know, I just did it. I solved the world. A world peace has been achieved today. But that's what the Horde are. They're essentially like a non-thought. It seems like from the Blizzard lore team. It's just like, we're going to do all this shit. We have all this story writing planned out. All these characters are going to do this, this, and that. This guy's going to die. This guy's going to show up here. This guy's going to do this thing. And then there's the other characters. Oh, well, those guys aren't the Alliance, so we don't really know what to do with them. And that's where it's come to.
Those peoples in Warcraft 3 that truly built out what Azeroth is, what this setting is. And if you look at vanilla World of Warcraft, essentially set amidst slightly rising tensions and a little bit of sort of Cold War situation, well, that quite literally defined the Azeroth that was put together. It's the origin point of the game that we're currently playing. And I'm not saying that that game can never change, but when it forgets what it is, its players will begin to feel like the thing they're playing is no longer in alignment with why they're playing it. And what's perhaps most sad to me is what the Horde represented for so many players, and why so many were drawn to it. Yeah, there's a lot of strength, honor, high testosterone stuff.
Yep.
But there's also them feeling like outcasts.
Wait a minute. Is that why the Horde are irrelevant? Because they were based on like high testosterone, big dick male lore, and Blizzard doesn't like that anymore, so they've just kind of dropped the Horde? Did we just have a breakthrough? Is that what this is all about? They're having trouble finding strong female leadership at the Horde? Is that what it is? Oh, I hope not. I hope not. It's controversial shit to say, but I don't know. It does kind of feel that way, doesn't it? Interesting.
A lot of people saw something in the Horde, saw something in the underdog, the misunderstood. That's one of the things that made Warcraft stand out, and that made so many people fall in love with it. And it actually goes deeper in that. And look, this right now, this bit's unscripted. This is just me talking. It's a bit of a thought that just kind of entered my head. Whenever you look at the Alliance, right, you do sort of feel this sort of Anglo-Saxon, Tolkien-inspired sort of thing, right? That's the sort of fantasy stuff that in this neck of the woods, we're all just like completely familiar with. But it was Blizzard's take on the Horde that actually felt different, that actually felt like it was bringing something to the fantasy genre that wasn't done so much. And you know, in a way, growing up not in America...
Blizzard's take on orcs and urukai, it's the most unique take of them all. They're just not mindless bad guys, basically. Just not mindless brutes running around beating the shit out of things. Even if you really get into Tolkien lore, there's much more to the urukai than just being a fucking mindless army. They almost have like parental issues where they're always looking for somebody to help lead them to whatever freedom they're looking for. But the Alliance, or the Horde, in terms of what they represented in Blizzard's world and what the orcs represented, was much more nuanced. There was much more depth to them. There was good and bad in them. They were like humans, just green, big, freaking bulky humans. That's how they treated them, basically. And yeah, that was very unique about the game. That was something unique from the very beginning when this game came out. It was like, oh my god, you could play as the bad guys, right? But when you play as the bad guys, you realize, wait, these guys aren't so bad. Tauren are not just giant fucking hammer-swinging cows. There's more to these guys. They got a religion. They got a bunch of beliefs. They actually want peace. They're very in touch with nature. There was a lot more depth to the bad guys. You know, I put that in quote because they weren't really just the bad guys. But yeah, that's kind of fallen to the wayside.
America, right? When we think of America, you do think of, well, the people who did end up saying, fuck the king. So many people from so many parts of the world came to that country. There's a sort of positive story to that. Obviously, I can think of, say, Irish immigrants ending up in America. And I think some of that just felt reflected in the Horde. It felt like, essentially, a really fucking cool and, like, American, in a good way, take on that sort of slice of the fantasy genre. And as Blizzard just went away and away and away from that, more and more, they've lost some of what made them unique, some of what made them stand out.
Yeah.
And some of what drew a load of people who wouldn't have been super into...
The high music is not me, it's the fucking editing of this damn video.
The nerdy elf shit. Into this big MMO that we all love. And I just think that in losing that, they have abandoned really what made their world stand out against many other fantasy worlds. It's a sad thing. I really hope they change their mind. I don't want another battle for Azeroth. The thought that I've long had is, guys, just look at what you did in vanilla. You pretty much did it perfectly. It was a bit of a Cold War. It wasn't some ridiculous, we're going to burn Teldrassil, we're going to torch the Undercity, we're going to kill everyone. No. It was a world full of distinct peoples with political alliances, defensive alliances, and different goals. And those stories didn't have to be big, huge things involving cosmic forces that are hard to understand. It was things as simple as the Night Elves really, really, really like their trees. But the orcs, like, they need some wood to build stuff with. And the Barrens doesn't have that much wood. That leads to Warsong Gulch.
Makes sense.
That's the kind of thing that makes a world feel real. And that is the kind of thing they have just lost. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video.
If the music gets any louder, my brains might get blown out.
At the end. Maybe you think it's interesting. I'd love to know what your take is on this. And if you want to see Midnight's essentially perfect microcosm of this issue, I implore you to watch this video next.
Great video. Besides the loud-ass music. Does anyone comment on that in the comments? Great video from Bellular. Interesting stuff. We'll see if I think Blizzard's got a second chance at kind of pulling some Horde lore in with the Amani patch. We'll see. But overall, still a nice video for the most part.